All right, so I am going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. So, Kat, please, could you call the roll call?
All right, President Vella,
Here.
Vice President Zuka,
Here.
Director Jordan,
Here.
Director Schmidt.
He's just logging in right now, Kat.
Okay. Director Wheeler,
Here.
Now try him. There he is.
Director Schmidt, are you present?
Finally, yes.
Hi, Brian.
Had some Zoom problems there.
Perfect, we have a quorum.
Very good. Thank you very much, Kat. Thank you. So any public comments?
We've not received any
No.
requests or any public comments, to my knowledge, Louis, Kat
All right.
or Monique. You guys didn't receive any emails? No. Okay.
No, I have not
All
received
right.
any.
Okay.
Very good. So we'll move on to item number 3, which is the agenda review. Anybody wants to pull any item from the agenda? Or any deletion or changes? Hearing none. Okay, we'll move on to item number 4, which is acknowledgements, which we don't have. And item number 5 is the consent agenda.
And President Bella, if I could just make a comment about the consent agenda, you'll see
Mhm.
that we still have the COVID resolution on there. That's
Correct.
just in case the governor does not lift the state of emergency, which is supposed to be lifted in 5 days. I just wanted us covered just in case for some reason they extend it. But I don't expect that to be the case. But then D acknowledges that there's a state of emergency related to the water events,
Correct.
and that's why that one is there.
Excellent. Excellent. Yes. So the consent, we have the approval of the minutes as usual, approval of the expenditures, and then the 2 items that council just mentioned to us. Any questions on the consent calendar? Do I hear approval of that? We do need
Motion in a
a
second.
motion and a second, correct?
I'll move.
So, yeah,
I'll move to
please.
approve.
Okay,
Second.
so
I'll move.
Good, thank you. So I have a motion by Director Zuka and a second by Director Wheeler. And Kat, please, roll call.
All right, Vice President Zuka,
Yes.
Director Wheeler,
Yes.
Director Jordan,
Yes.
Director Schmidt,
Yes.
President Vella.
Yes. Very good, thank you. And hearing and appeals, we have none. This is going to be a fast meeting. Good.
Don't jinx it.
You just put a whammy on it, Louis.
Let's stop talking about it being fast and actually make it fast.
I second that one.
I want to get out of here now. All right. So item number 7 is the capital improvement program and the certificate of participation. Who's going to take this one?
There's no business there related to that this month, Louis.
Okay, very good. So we'll go to item number 8, to receive and accept the financial audit ended June 30th, 2022, which is 8A. And I believe, Rena, you'll take
Yeah.
the lead on this one, correct?
I'll
Okay.
introduce it and just want to make note that this is Tammy's last audit. So you guys can pick on her today when we get to the questioning part, okay? And I was just trying to get in. And as you may know too, and you can tell, we got started on this audit a little bit later, and part of it was just the transition in management between Tammy, myself, and Kat, and Monique, and so on. So we didn't start on it the same time that we normally had started in the past, but still timely. And thanks to Sheldon, staff, and James Marta's office, we got it to the point where the audit was actually done last Friday, but still needed that last I dotted or that T cross, which meant that, Mr. Marta, who's actually going to make the presentation, was going to sign off on some of the documents, and he just wasn't available at the time. But the audit, for all intents and purposes, is complete. This past Tuesday, just a couple of days ago, we had the audit exit meeting with the finance committee, and they received the same audit report and presentation you're going to see here in a little bit from one of Mr. Martyr's employees, Michael Manduca. And so at this point, what I think I want to do is just let Mr. Marta go through his presentation. I believe you probably want to start there, James, and then we'll let the board have any questions once he's through this presentation.
Well, thank you. And if it's okay, I'll share my screen to walk through the presentation.
Okay, let's see if I can do
All
that.
right.
It should be enabled now.
Okay, so you want to just share your screen, Jim?
Yeah, it's saying no, but
Let me stop my share. Okay, now you should be able to share your screen.
there we go. Okay, I know the audit committee has been able to see this already, so I'll try to go through it and make sure the board gets a good understanding of what happened. So we actually have three main things I want to discuss: the communications those charged with governance, the audit report, and the internal control letter. The communication charged with governance is a really important part because it's the things that the auditor needs to make sure the board knows. And sometimes it could be very critical about changes in accounting, and sometimes not so much. So first of all, when we look at the whole report, a lot of times you just call it the audit report, but really just the letter on the front is the audit report. The rest is the representation of management. So our job is to express opinion on those financial statements, and our opinion is unmodified. So we have to report if there was other consultations with other independent accountants. I know you use Sheldon's company, but he's not considered an independent accountant. He helps you with the accounting. So nobody was opinion shopping, looking, oh, what auditor is going to give the best opinion. We did not have any disagreements with management. And at the end, we are going to get a management rep letter signed on Monday.
Yes.
And so we have to report to you if there's any changes in the accounting, and there has been one change. GASB 87 requires us to report leases differently. So now if you lease out a piece of property, you have to show it as a lease asset and a liability. So it's a change in accounting. You'll see that on the financial statements. A few years ago, we had to report pension liabilities. They haven't been in the past. It's an example of another one. The estimates related in forming these financial statements are the pension and OPEB. So OPEB is other post-employment benefits, so healthcare and those type of things that you get in retirement. And those are estimated by actuaries. So management goes ahead and accepts those, but you have an outside actuary that does that. And so the audit is more than just looking at the numbers and see that they match up balances. We do look at the accounting systems, the policies and procedures. We gather other evidence. We might do test calculations and review the accounting methods and systems for reporting. The plan scope, as you mentioned, that there was some delay. There's no findings, and there's no issues with the disclosures. On the financial statements, so now we'll cover the audit. As I said, the opinion is an unmodified one, and pages 4 through 5 of the financials have the financial statements, and it's the management discussion analysis, and it's a great way to see what happened during the year. Sometimes you might have years where you get bond financing and you see more revenues, and other years you spend money. So it won't be consistent because you have different flows, and that will be a good way to understand that. We looked back and did a graphical summary of the statement of net position. So that's your balance sheet. And so we see the balance sheet, the assets growing, and that's because you've gone out and gotten some debt. So this blue line here is the assets, and then this purple is debt, and then here is the net position. And so you see over time that you've added assets, partly by issuing debt and some from operational resources. You do see some net assets increasing, and that's partly due with revenues that you brought in that you have planned for projects but you haven't spent yet. So you might see in some future years times where you might have showing like loss, but that's more of a timing of when you're expending on some projects. Looking at the financial statements and looking across the years, we can see on the bottom this net position went from 27 million now to 36 million. But a lot of it has been driven by capital improvements and debt that you've gotten. And so you see current assets are 16 million compared to 9 million in the past. So a lot of that represents cash and equivalents. Going over into the net position, you can see the investment in capital assets graphed here, and this is the unrestricted portion. So this is available for any projects that you might have. And then the capital assets, you can see the growth here. This is just kind of drilling into it a little bit deeper. And then this is the graphically showing the statement of revenues and expenses. And so if you see this line here where you had a negative, that's a prior year restatement, and that I think was due to some of the pension liabilities getting recorded. And over here we have a little purple prior restatement, that's the lease accounting. So when they have a change in accounting principle, we do show that. We see operating revenues exceeding operating expenses, so that's always good that you're operating appropriately. Looking overall, you can see pretty consistent for your members, the operating revenue. The salaries and benefits, the reason why you had this big difference over here had to do with pension liabilities, not big salaries over here. And but the rest of your expenses have been pretty consistent. And then down here, the 578,000, that's part of the lease accounting change that we had to change beginning balance to accommodate the new accounting requirements. So those are a quick view of the financials. The audit is, as I said, is more than looking at the financials. We look at the processes and systems, but we also need to report to you if we found any material weaknesses or issues of non-compliance, and we report to you that we haven't. And the reason we have this box here is to show that we have to look at the organization in many facets. And so, conclusion, the district's net position increased $4.3 million to ending net balance of 36 million. 21 million of that is invested in capital assets. We really would like to thank your staff and then Sheldon Chavin and his staff for the efforts to make this a successful audit. With that, are there any questions?
Tammy, do you want to kind of say your piece here? Because I know we had some discussions during the finance committee meeting, and then you could talk a little bit about that so that we don't have to repeat the same questions again, and then the rest of the group can ask their questions. Go ahead.
Thank you, Louis. I was going to bring up that, the board was notified last year about those that GASB requirements. So this year you just got to see it put into action, right? Implemented in there. And, another addition I was going to make to Rena's comment about not just the leadership transition, we did have a new district treasurer with Sheldon coming on board. And so, it was very thoroughly vetted getting all of this accomplished, particularly with the flooding at Dairy Lane. So as Louis mentioned at the finance committee meeting, there's just a lot in these past 10 years. And I like that one graph that they prepared to show how hard that we've worked, and that, the activities that have been accomplished through the 10 years that I've been here and the rest of the staff. And it just shows this concentrated effort that from the board's development of policy or their action, gets spoken down through the general manager, that was me, and then down into the ranks. And the proof is right there in the charts. And even today at our staff meeting, I mentioned it to staff because we always, Rena was leading the meeting, and I just mentioned, hey, don't forget this audit's an important part, an important piece, an important document for the district. It just shows the ongoingness and the work that we've done all these years. And I wanted to encourage them as a team to continue to pay attention to the details and to be part of why we are in this strong financial position right now. So I'm proud of us. I'm proud of you all. And, I know it's not a time for just patting ourselves on the back, but since it's my last audit, I'm going to do it. So let me just do it right here on camera. Okay. And I'm just thrilled that, we all work together to start working on that, capital asset, that, the capital projects and that depreciation number. Matt and Louis, I'll remember when I started here, that thing was just flat for all these years.
Yeah.
And then my last comment was going to be, I had lunch with former director directors, David Altscher and Al Stubing on Tuesday. And I thanked them at that launch because everything is built on the foundations of prior boards of directors, right? Prior staffs and everybody working together to get to the place that we are today. So I'm certainly available to answer questions. And so is, the rest of us, because we're all very, very involved in getting this audit to this point. And we do thank you, James, and your team, because it's important that we get this accomplished before the end of the month so we can get it out to the lenders and the various agencies who are waiting with bated breath to get it. So thank you, Lois.
Yeah, that was the last thing that I thought I just mentioned. I'm glad you brought that up. And the reason we brought this to, even though it wasn't, completely signed by Mr. Martyr and so on, is that, we'd made a commitment to some of the lending agencies, the dissemination agent, Dan Bergman, he's got a report he's got to get out. We said, hey, we're going to get our audit done by the 1st of March. And so, after receiving the audit late last week, I talked with Tammy and Sheldon and said, hey, okay, so this is what it's at, should we just go ahead and move forward, even though it's not formally signed by Mr. Marty yet? And they said, yeah, that's fine. I mean, this is a report for the board. It's a final report and there's not going to be any changes to it, so let's just take it to the board so that we can stay on that time frame and then get the audit completed, which we will before the 1st, and then we can get it into those folks' hands who need to have it from us, so that we promise we'd get it in their hands.
And it'll be posted to the website because next week or week after, I'll be meeting with a couple of community members to get the website transparency recertification going. So it'll be posted to the website as soon as it's all signed off.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much. And Rena, I saw that there were some small changes that were brought up during the finance committee that were taken care of too, on the graphs and all of that.
Yes, on one of the charts, there was one arrow that was pointed in the wrong direction. And so, Mr. Manduka corrected that. And when we had that change made, and there were some numbers that didn't make any change to the audit itself, but they were just incorrectly stated. Sheldon corrected that, sent it over to Mr. Manduka, and he corrected the presentation and also made the correction on that one arrow on one of the slides. And so when that was completed, then we pushed out the final audit presentation report to the board members. Kat pushed it out on Tuesday.
Correct. Yes. Thank you. And as Rena said earlier, Kirk and I have already seen this presentation and we made our comments on it. And so any other comments from the other directors? Any questions, anybody? All right, we'll go ahead with Director Zuka first, followed by Director Schmidt.
Yep. Mine are pretty minor, and it's more, hold on a second. There's a couple of formatting things that I think are pretty minor, and obviously this is not a final report, so that's not a big deal, but I'm sure someone will go through it. There's a few references that are saying error throughout the headers of the document. The only thing that I think substantial is the term expiration. I'd hate to vote on this as a board member when the document says that my term expired last year. It has 2022 in there for 3 out of the 5 of us.
Yeah, we put that in because, again, this is for the audit at the end of fiscal year 2022.
Understood.
Okay.
But then we're voting on it in 2023. Is that, then that's this is intended to be then the board that was in place as of the end of last year, or the term's not correct, is I guess my point. You
don't vote on it, you just receive this report.
Just receive it.
Okay, that's right.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, yeah, that's fine. The term's still incorrect. My term wasn't up in 2022.
Yes.
But it was for FYE June 30th, 2022.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
No,
Yeah,
it was
still
never up in
2024.
2022.
Oh, that's right.
I didn't run for election.
Okay,
right.
that's right.
I see that.
You're exactly right.
And Brian also should be
That's right.
expires in 2022, right, Brian? Because you were up for re-election.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
That was the other one, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah.
So-
Sorry about that, Matt. We didn't.
No,
Matt-
like I said,
So Matt is supposed to be 2024?
2022. 2024. Yes.
Correct.
And-
Yeah,
and
Matt,
then-
Matt
and
and I are
Brian-
the same year.
And
then-
Brian,
Was 2022.
That's right.
okay.
Okay. Yeah, Matt
That
and I are on the
was-
same year. So, okay, good. Director Zuka, anything else or?
that was it. Thank you.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Yeah.
Director Schmidt?
Yeah, glad this all looks really good. I just had one mechanical question about depreciation expenses, which I might have asked in the past and can't remember the answer if it's been given to me, so bear with me. And the question is, what happens in a depreciation expense? Is money transferred over to a capital account? Is that what happens?
Well, first I'll answer from a pure accounting, and then I'll ask if they are doing any other thing with their funds. In pure accounting, if you had an asset worth $20 million and it had a 20-year life, then you wouldn't charge all that to 1 year. You would show that, part of it gets used up each year. And so 1 million would get depreciated per year. It's an accounting entry just to show that the useful life expires. So that's just an accounting. There's no cash that moves with that. So the actual cash transaction would be you spend 20 million in year one, but then you allocate that cost every year gets charged $1 million per year. And that's how you can allocate cost to figure out, allocate and create a proper rate to members to say, what is the true cost of providing the services that we have? And depreciation is a way to systematically allocate that. So that depreciation is that mathematical calculation. Now you collect so in that so the first year you spend 20 million, and the next year you still collect the money and you charge that year. So that money could just go into a capital replacement plan, but that just depends on your budgeting.
Okay, so on page 10, it says we have a depreciation operating expense of one point something million.
Page 10, is that on the
And-
slides, Brian?
What's that?
Is that on the slides you're looking at, or?
No,
look-
it's on the audit.
On the report itself.
Okay.
Yeah, the
So get
financial
there.
statements.
Oh, I see. All right.
Okay,
Trying to get there.
I'll just show that up here if you don't mind.
Okay.
Okay, so you have depreciation of $1 million. And so that $1 million is that systematic allocation to that year. And so what accounting tries to do is tries to match up revenues with expenses and go, hey, what did this year really use up, right? And so it got allocated $1,045,000 to depreciation. Although the actual cash out, if we go look at the balance sheet, the assets in the past, the capital assets is $29 million. That's the total net. But the year before, there's been some additions during the current year. So that's not actually what was spent during the year. You saw it went from 27 to 29 million. You spent 2 million during the year, and you had these assets. So this is just its share that you're kind of showing the expiration of some value. So that could be pipes in the ground and buildings and everything.
Yeah, so I take it from that depreciation actually means our capital value goes down by that much.
Yes, and
No
it's
money shifting around at all.
right. It's just an accounting entry. So over in my original example, $20 million in 20 years will go to zero. But hopefully that's more reflective and gives you information about, oh, well, we need to plan on replacing that.
Okay.
But because if you didn't do that, you'd have a really, really bad year the first year when you buy it. And then you'd go years where you don't have expense, and ratepayers will go, hey, you don't have any expense. How come you're charging us so much? Right? But this from an accounting says, well, wait, you really are using up part of this capital infrastructure. So it's a systematic way. Accounting says it just kind of gets burned up evenly, but it's a systematic way to allocate it. And it also gives you insight about when you perhaps would have to replace it. Now, accounting doesn't always equal the actual, so sometimes a building will last longer and the pipes will last longer, and sometimes they don't last quite as long because of other things. It's the best estimate of the life.
Okay.
And it's a very good question. And I'll tell you, when I first took accounting, depreciation was my thing. Like, this doesn't make sense.
No, it's helpful. Thank you.
Very good. That's it, Jordan.
Yes, if you could stay on that same page, because my question was actually on that page as well, and I think it was just kind of more for my information. With the change in reporting where we had to report the lease, the 578,000. Out of curiosity, where does that number fall previous years when we didn't have to pull it out?
So here's what happened is under in the past there was nothing. So if you leased a building or leased property that was worth $1 million and you just paid, $50,000 a year, it would just go as an expense as you lease it, like when you rent something. But what the accounting rules have made us do now is put that as an asset on your books as if you acquired it. So in my example of $1 million property, you would put that on the books. Now, what we had to do is we had to figure out how much, when we do an accounting change, we can't put everything in the current income statement because that would make it lopsided. So an example, when we started booking the pension liability, we didn't put it all as an expense in 1 year. We put the prior year's amount, the whole balance that it would have been at the beginning down here. And then we only put the incremental expense of the depreciation and such on this building that this property you're leasing in here. So we have additional information in the footnote, but this in note 1Q, but this 578 represents the balance at the beginning as if we accounted this way all the time. And then on the balance sheet here, we do have a lease. This is a lease receivable. So in this case, you have leased out property to folks. And so the 1 million, but the 578 represents the beginning as if you accounted for it. So we don't throw off the financial statements, and we just put the current year portion in here. More information is in note 1Q that describes that.
Okay, yeah, I'm just trying to figure out, and I guess maybe I can meet with Rena separately offline where that, because the way I understand it is we are leasing property to other people. So we're actually getting the money and not paying out the money.
Yes.
So there's somewhere on our financial statements where we're getting some type of income for that. So that's why I'm wondering where it was now that we have to pull it out. Where did we pull it from, I guess?
And what we did is, that's why this one's a positive. I know I was talking in leases in general. Your number is a positive where a lot of our others are negatives.
Mm-hmm.
And so before it was going to be in probably other revenues.
Okay,
I think it's in rent.
Yeah,
In non-operating
because
rent.
if it
it's
was
rent.
in other revenues,
Oh, there
I
it
was
is.
trying to look
It
at
is
the
in
difference.
rent.
Yeah.
It's non-operating. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, we don't call it
you
rent. I
go.
don't know what we call it in our budget. So I had to look for it. I think we call it lease revenue. So
We do.
yeah, there it is. It's in rent.
And there's more detail than you probably all want to look at, but it's in here that talks about this lease. I don't want to make you dizzy looking at all of this, but it's in there. And if anybody, we talk about it here, then there's also another footnote that describes it later on in the financials.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, Dr. Jordan, is that good?
Yeah, I'll still ponder on it, and yeah, but for now, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we are just receiving the report for the time being. There'll be other opportunities to get a little bit more details in areas where we need to have more information. Good questions. Good questions. Thank you.
That's a really good. When later on you might look at page 17, there's a whole list of all the lease receivables. It's the cell tower. It's all cell tower stuff.
It's all cell towers. That's right.
Correct. Yes.
And Kathy, feel free to reach out to Sheldon Siobhan. You can talk to him. He does these too, and he's very familiar with that provision.
Sure. Okay. I was just wondering where the money If we're
Yep.
calling it out here, then
Yeah.
it's subtracted from somewhere, right? That's what I
Yeah.
was trying to figure out.
Good comments, good questions. Very, very good. Okay, anything else? Tammy or Rena, or Kat, any last minute comments on this?
So this is the last year that Mr. Marta's firm is going to be doing the audit. They've been doing it for 10 years for the district. And so next year you will more than likely see a different firm doing that. So I do want to thank Mr. Marta and his staff for all the years of service to the board and the district in providing this audit. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work on their behalf, and it's a lot of work on staff too. But I think that just in general, as Tammy mentioned, you've seen how just over the last 10 years or so, the district's financial position has just gotten better and better. And it's just a lot of hard work by the board and by the staff. And then Mr. Marta and his folks have just been there to make sure that, keeping us on our toes, make sure that we dot all of our I's and cross all of our T's.
Thank you, Jim.
Excellent. Very good. Thank you all. Thank you very much. And good job. Thank you for the hard work. All right. So as we said earlier, this is just to receive the report. So we're going to move on.
Thank you, James.
Thank
Good
you,
night.
Mr. Marta. Thank you so much. So we'll move on to item B, which is also to receive an update from the interim GM on the actions during the flood emergency. So Kat,
Yeah.
take it away, please.
Yeah, so this, if you recall, last month, the board adopted resolution 2023-02, which gave the IGM just the authority to take some actions. And as part of the discussion, the board had requested that we report out on some of those actions. So that's what this is. It's very similar to what we did during the COVID pandemic, when the board was getting regular reports on a monthly basis on actions taken then. So right now we're only 1 month into it. So I just listed the things, and the things of important are that the cleanup process started with Restoration Management Company, and literally on Sunday or Monday, right after the flood hit the district, we signed a contract for them to start services, knowing that the JPI adjuster had said, go ahead and do what you guys got to do, and so we did that. And right now, as far as I know, that contract was just under $50,000, but I wouldn't be surprised if it goes more than that. But everything that we've done out there to date so far has been with the approval and the advice of the adjuster from Aqua JPIA. The second thing is Stepford. They stepped in right away and say, hey, look, we understand you guys need some temporary help to get your customer service up and running. We'll let you guys use some space in our office. And they gave us their back staff room, where people take their lunch breaks and so on. They had a nice big table there, and Misty and Ron Okada and Jeanette ended up over there, and literally we didn't miss a beat. If you remember, January 1st was a holiday. The Monday or Sunday, Monday the 2nd was a holiday for us. But we were all busy working that day, I tell you. But on Tuesday, the 3rd, shortly after 8 o'clock, thanks to Stepford's help and all the staff's help, we didn't miss a beat. Our customers could call in and ask about their water bills or pay their water bills or any questions they might have had related to our operations here because of what Stepford did for us. So that was the other thing that we did is, rented some space from them. Then, of course, you heard that, we found some lease space. Didn't know how long that was going to take. That was probably the thing that was kind of hanging on all of our heads. Are we going to find some place? And we were fortunate, and we've moved in. Kat and I are right now running this meeting from the lease office space on Old County Road, and you can see the monthly lease is almost $12,000 a month. $3.25 a square foot is what we're paying for the space, plus cleanup and stuff like that. We're just paying for our power bill. Office furniture, pretty much all the furniture inside our office was ruined. Anything that had a wooden base was deemed to be just trash, and so we had to go out and find office furniture. And so again, some of us here are now working in new office and with new office furniture. The JPI adjuster said, hey, just get your bills together and we'll go ahead and process them. So we're anticipating that. Last couple things is we lost a few computers. The devices were actually sitting on the floor, so they got inundated with the flood and they had to be replaced. So we've got some desktop computers and some monitors. that we're replacing. And then the last thing is actually out in the field over in the San Juan area, our regulator station. There was some flooding that got inside our vault there and ruined our SCADA equipment. So we're working on trying to get the SCADA equipment replaced, and we'll be submitted a reimbursement request from Aqua JPA for that flood damage. So those are the big items. Next month, we'll have one more, and it'll take into account the time we spent, manning up during the flood situation and any temporary type things that we had to purchase. I mean, paper, bought boxes to help pack up stuff and move. So that'll be another one that I'll report out next month. I'm not sure off the top of my head right now if we have anything major that we're going to be doing this month. We're almost through with February. It's really now just a matter of settling in here at 1075 Old County Road. And we're hoping that on March 9th, when we have our strategic plan meeting, that it's going to be here. And looking forward to having the open public board meetings here at 1075 Old County Road. It's not going to be the same boardroom that you were used to for many, many years, but it's going to work. We're going to make it work. So that's my report. Does anybody have any questions of me and what we spent money on in January?
Yes, very good, Rena. I sent some information. I forwarded some information to both you and Kat.
Yeah.
So what's the process on some reimbursement due to the declarations that we had?
Kat, can you address that? Or
Yeah, so that was regarding like the FEMA process, which is really focused on residences and small businesses that lost things in the flood that weren't necessarily insured. We're very fortunate that it looks like JPIA is going to cover all of our losses. So we followed the FEMA process. We're still eligible for it if there's anything that exceeds that we need to go for. But right now, our process is fortunately very simplified.
But not all expenses incurred related to the flood are going to be reimbursable, right? Not everything, or is it?
You mean
You know,
reimbursable under FEMA or by Aqua JPIA?
By either it could
Whoever.
be by Aqua JPIA and then over and above by somebody else.
Well, JPIAs are deductible 5,000, guys, $5,000. That's what we're going to have to deduct out of whatever they cover. That's what I
Okay.
recall. It's $5,000 deductible.
And
Yes,
then
that's
everything
correct.
else, okay,
then
everything
everything
above
else is
the
covered.
deductible is covered.
The only thing
Correct.
that isn't covered is normal staff hours. Overtime is
That's right.
covered, but as
Overtime
far
is
as we
covered.
know, everything else will be covered.
Correct, yeah. Well, normal staff hours would have been, budgeted anyway, so,
Right.
okay. All right. Very good. Thank you. Any questions from any of the directors? Very good. So this topic will be brought up next month
next month?
and
Yeah,
the month after, probably. We'll get the updates every month
right.
to some degree, correct?
Right. You'll keep getting as long as things are happening related to the flood. But at some point in time, it'll end, and I'll forward the board that, hey, there will be no more because there's just no more action for us to take.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I mean,
And
the
then
big things. Go
We'll
ahead.
start getting the plan to go back to
To
the
Dairy
building,
Lane. Yeah.
later on. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Yes, something that we didn't plan for, but congratulations for a job well done under the circumstances, and so that's very good. Thank you.
It's been a lot of work.
Yeah. All right. Item C, BOSCA report, and as I mentioned, and it's in the minute, there was no BOSCA meeting, but it still showed up on the agenda. We didn't have a BOSCA meeting this month, so and if you see the minutes, I did mention last time that there will be no BOSCA meeting, but for some reason it showed up in the agenda. So I'm going to go on to item number D, which is Rena.
Yeah, just the drought report, and you guys have been used to seeing these California drought maps, and so again, I just wanted to kind of lay the background. This is February 2022 last year. Just seeing the map of California, and
Ren, you're not sharing your screen, just so you know.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I was. Where am I? Where'd it go? Share screen. Okay. Let me put that up there. Okay. Now you're seeing the screen now?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry about that. So again, looking at the California drought map, February 2022, and you're going to see the difference, a very wet December and January made here in 23 in the next map. So you can see a lot of the extreme drought has just gone away. A lot of the severe drought, it was literally the land area in California was cut in half because of all the rain we received in December and January. And then the reservoirs, this is again looking last year, February of 2022. And I always like to show or pick on Shasta in the upper left. Shasta last year in early February was at 36% of its capacity, 54% of its historic level for that particular day. And Oroville next to it was another major reservoir in the system, was at 46% of capacity and 78% of its historical for that particular time. And then Don Pedro in the far right in the middle, you can see it's 57% of its capacity and 79% of historical. So now let's go a year later and just had a lot of rain in a pretty short window. And again, looking up at Shasta, you can see that it's at 57% of capacity to 86% of where it normally is. So it picked up a lot of water in a pretty short period of time. Same thing with Oroville. Actually, Oroville went over what its historical average has been, so it's 112% of historical for the particular time of year. Same with Don Pedro, 104% of where it normally is this time of the year. So just a lot of water coming in all over the place. I've been driving by the San Luis Reservoir on my way home. And when you take a look at the water level there, I mean, there's probably like 80 to 100 foot of freeboard between the top level of the reservoir and where the water level is, but still translates to a little over 1 million acre feet, and it's a 2 million acre foot reservoir. So there's still a lot of water capacity left in the San Luis Reservoir, but a lot of change just over the last year, and most of it again because you remember last year was pretty dry, but December and January were very, very wet. And then Mr. Ritchie shared the national precipitation forecast. So for the last part of January, early February, you can see that there was going to be some rain, not a lot, and we didn't see a lot of rain in early February. And even the same thing through the middle of February, there was going to be some rain in our region and in the upper Hetch Hetchy system and so on, but not a lot. And you're going to see that in the forecast, the precipitation. And then again, he typically shares these graphs of the Hetch Hetchy precipitation. The big, thick, bright red line there is this year, the 2023, and you can see it's ahead of 1983, which is that kind of brownish dotted line there. It's actually ahead of that. And that was probably the last really big water year. And you can see that 2023 is well ahead of the 30-year median for the Hetch Hetchy system. And well ahead now, it would just caught up and just passed last year's, that gold line that's in the graph. And then of course you see 1977, a really dry year, that blue line down below, just for some context. The rain in the upcountry or the Hetch Hetchy system. So you see all the rain, you've seen these before in December and January. And then really when this was the slide was received at the water managers meeting, there hadn't been any rain in February. We saw a report out that SFPUC put out just for a regional water report, and it was just recent. And so it showed in February, there's less than 1.5 inches of rain through, I would believe it was the 20th of February. So February's been pretty dry this year, but we had some really hefty downpours in December and January where we've actually, gotten close to the annual total, average annual total for the upcountry system. And the Bay Area, same thing, just really heavy Decembers and Januaries. And actually the year to date, the 28 inches of rain has actually exceeded the average annual. So it's pretty good. And again, February has been pretty light so far, and I don't think it's going to grow much. And then just looking around the state, looking from July 1 through February 1, 2023, you can see different parts of the state and how much water has fallen. The Bay Area seemed to be, quite wet. And then you go to other parts of the state, you look at the very bottom, Palm Springs, and even though they got 85% of their normal, it's only still less than 2.5 inches of rain. That's why they're in a desert, I guess, right? But you can look at the top one, the San Francisco downtown, you know, the rainfall between July and February, the 22.8 inches is very close to the normal rainfall for that sector, which was 22.9 inches. So, you know, right there at normal in just a few months. And then the snowpack, you can see the 2023 snowpack in red, ahead of the last really heavy snowpack, which was in 2017, and well ahead of the 30-year median, and just a lot better than last year. You can see last year we just kind of ran out of snow. And I was talking with board member Jordan just yesterday that, you know, it's going to be in April, right around the 1st, when the state Department of Water Resources and the USBR will make their forecast about water releases due to the snowpack. So this year it looks like it's pretty good. I've already remember reading some stories that at least the state water contractors are expected to receive water this year, where in the past few years they haven't received much water, if any at all. And then one thing to the benefit of the regional water system is that water that comes down the Tuolumne River. You know, until there's enough water that has met the needs of the irrigation districts, the Turlock and the Modesto, you know, the regional water system doesn't get any water that they can bank in Dom Pedro. But this year, again, because of the rain events in December and January, the water bank has already received over 500,000 acre-feet of water that they've been able to bank. And you're going to see that in the storage chart that I put up every year. Last year, they received just a grand total of 201,000 acre-feet. So, you know, we've already exceeded that just a few months into the rain season. You know, Mr. Ritchie will tell you that what they'd like to have in the Tuolumne River runoff is 620,000 acre-feet, and that would fill up the entire system. So we're just about there, and he says he's pretty confident that they're going to fill up the regional water system with water from the Tuolumne River this year. And here's that storage. The upper part of the table is the Tuolumne system, so up there in the Hetch Hetchy system. And I just kind of highlighted the water bank. And so I'm looking, we're looking at, you know, January 30th, 2023, and comparing that with February 1st, 2022. And you can see the water bank at the end of January, just a month or so ago, was at 565,000 acre-feet, or 99% of capacity. A year ago, around the same time, they were at 337,000 acre-feet. And all throughout calendar year 2022, you know, Mr. Ritchie was just saying that was a concern of theirs, is that not being able to fill up the water bank because there just wasn't enough water being released down the Tuolumne River. Made up for it in just December and in January. And then even in the local system, you know, compared year to year, just an increase of about 15% overall. So just generally speaking, the regional water system, the amount of water that's stored is looking really good so far this year, this water season. This was interesting, total deliveries. You know, so the top part of this chart is calendar year 2013, and that was the last really high water use year by the regional water system. And then they threw in calendar year 2020, which is the COVID year. And you can see that spike in the beginning part of the pandemic, and then how it dropped in April and May when everybody's trying to figure out what they're going to be doing, and things kind of got back to normal. And then that orange line is 2015, the last really dry year. You can see how much the water conservation impacts by the regional water system took place over the calendar year. And again, some of you board members remember that we hit something like a 28% reduction or water conservation factor in our community here. Did really well. So far in calendar year 23, the amount of water being delivered to the customers throughout the system is even below 2015. So you can see the most recent week, average use on the system was 143 million gallons of water a day, well below what you see the 2015 line and even the 2020 line. And you're going to see it on this next slide, I believe. Yeah, our use, right? So here's January on the far left-hand side, and you can see our January number was 65,000 units of water. Compared to last year in January, it was 77,000 units of water. So it just really mimics, you know, the entire regional water system. And our per capita use in January was just under 42 gallons per day per person, residential. And I think this is going to be close to the last slide, just a cumulative Just kind of, this is that slide or chart I started showing last year, just kind of keeping track of it on a cumulative basis through the year. The only thing I don't have is the updated information from the SFPUC system. So that orange line there and the orange bars are 2022 numbers. Eventually, when I get to 2023 numbers from SFPUC, I'll edit this chart and we'll actually see how we're going to compare to what the SFPUC is going to maybe recommend as a budget for us. Right now, they're still saying that they're keeping firm, but I imagine after April, we're going to hear a different message from the SFPUC with regards to water availability throughout the regional water system. And that's it. I mean, does anybody have any questions or anything catch their attention they have a question on?
Okay, thank you, Rena.
right.
Any questions from Rena? Interesting. Director Schmidt, please.
Yeah, I just had one question on page 38 regarding reservoir storage and the percent of the reservoir that's stored. And I don't know if you know the answer to this, Rena, but my understanding is a lot of these reservoirs will have some type of rule curve that determines how much water can be allowed in the reservoir. And as you get later on in the season, they'll allow more water because there's less risk of a big storm and creating a flood that they can't manage.
Right.
Is this for percent of maximum storage? Is this for this particular current time, or is that for would they be able to store more water later in the season?
They had to release some water during even the rain events. And I was going to point that out at the San Antonio Reservoir, which is one of their new facilities on the East Bay. I got to tour that a few years ago, and I got a tour of the Hetch Hetchy system. And they had just recently completed construction of an emergency spillway, this huge concrete spillway. I mean, the thing was probably 50 to 100 foot wide and 20 foot tall. And the SFPUC was in the process of slowly filling up that reservoir to check it out at different stages to make sure that it was holding water and wasn't leaking water or something like that. And Mr. Ritchie was telling us here in February that with the rain events in December and January, it filled up that San Antonio reservoir faster than they were anticipating. And it just kind of put them through that trial, and it actually got so full that they had to release water through that emergency spillway. So, all these facilities have operating plans, and they typically try and release water, during the year. So once we get past, March and go through the end of the calendar year, they're releasing water through it because they're anticipating they need to have room in the wintertime when they hopefully receive their snow and there's rain, and the rain runs off in the watersheds and just starts filling those up. And so you'll typically see at the end of a calendar year that the levels in these reservoirs fall off, and it's always just trying to balance out, how much water is coming in, how much water is going out to feed your customers, and it is a balancing act. This year, because of the rainstorms, the reservoirs filled up probably faster than they anticipated. And actually, some of these, the manager of these facilities, one of their concerns they have now is there's so much snow in the Sierra Nevadas that if we are all of a sudden to get a warm weather system come in and actually start melting the snow, there could be some flooding potential because these reservoirs are pretty full. They just can't hold that water. So the water will start going over those emergency spillways, or they will release water through the dam just because they can't hold anymore, physically can't hold anymore. And that's a concern. And I've seen that happen in the Central Valley where they've released water from like Pine Flat or Millerton, and it's made its way to some of the communities over in Kings County. And the community starts seeing the flood waters rising into their community. So it's always trying to balance that out, so we'll see how it goes. We're kind of early into it and everything's full right now.
Yeah, I'm not really familiar with the rule curve for the reservoirs up in the Sierras, but I do know that Santa Clara Valley Water District, that they do allow extra storage later in the spring. So those local Bay Area storage ones, the ones that are at 99% right now, they probably will be able to add additional storage. That's
And
all.
I think somebody was asking a question about, because there was concerns that the Crystal Springs Reservoir was going to be spilling over. And I remember Mr. Ritchie commenting that they were able to release some water. I'm not sure where they released it to, but they were releasing some water to take some of the pressure off, so to speak, the reservoir, so that it wouldn't spill over the top and make a bigger mess. So, right now everybody's probably going through their operations plan and releasing waters in some kind of way, looking back at history and looking at future weather forecasts to find out what may be coming their way, that they can try and manage that water in there, so it minimizes any potential flood and damage to the communities where these facilities are close to.
All right, thanks.
Very good. Thank you. And water conservation, Brenna, is still on, right? Voluntarily.
Yes. Yeah, that
Okay.
hasn't changed. And people ask them that, and they say, right now, they haven't changed their motto. It's still the voluntary conservation, but we'll see how that changes again, probably sometime after April, when the state and the federal government starts talking about water availability to the contractors.
Correct. And for us, I mean, water conservation could also mean, lesser revenues as well, correct?
It can, but and we did see that there was some drop in revenue, so it hasn't affected us bad yet, but that's a concern, is a thing that we keep an eye on.
We need to keep an eye on. Excellent.
Yeah, we keep an eye on that.
That's what I was getting at. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good.
And there is going to be another pass-through rate adjustment by the SFPUC, so we can anticipate a rate adjustment from the SFPUC for beginning on July 1, 2023. And we'll be talking to, hopefully we set up a meeting with the finance committee to talk about that next month.
Very good. All right. Any other questions from the directors or anyone? All right. Hearing none. Okay. Yep, please.
Sorry, there's a second part to Rena's item, the conservation quarterly report.
Yes. So this is going to be an introduction to one of our new employees, Brandon Spears. And Brandon, maybe you might take an opportunity here to introduce yourself, and then maybe talk about the water conservation report, maybe some of the highlights that you want to share with the board members.
Okay, well, first of all, I just want to say thank you to the board for welcoming me here. This is my first board meeting that I'm attending. And so I started in early December, and there's been a lot of learning so far, and I've had a great experience so far with the district. And so this is my first water conservation report that I've had an opportunity to contribute to making. And so the first item here, we go over the calendar contest that we have with the local schools, the elementary schools. And we, right before the flood, we held a vote for the top 3 winners. And so those will be included in a couple pages at the down. But yeah, I've had a great time reaching out to the students and the teachers and informing them who the winners are and who will be the grand prize winners. And so that that ceremony will be held in I believe a couple months at another board meeting in the future, I think in April.
Yeah.
So, and then subject 2 is just like a little blurb about myself. I graduated from Humboldt State University in 2021. After that, I participated in the AmeriCorps and helped educate local school children in the Tahoe area on environmental concerns. And after my stint with the AmeriCorps, I was an engineering technician within the County of Humboldt Engineering Department, and I worked on land use issues. I've also had another internship that was environmentally related. So I have a little bit of experience in the environmental field, and I'm excited to bring my expertise or my experience here as well. And then subject number 3, in early December, we were reached out to by the San Mateo County of Education, Office of Education, and it's a new opportunity to help educate local school children past the elementary grades or elementary schools. It's an opportunity to get ourselves into the middle schools and help educate local children within the middle schools on the potential of environmental careers that will be available to them, and just educate them further on environmental topics. And we're going to be working with a couple other water-focused organizations, Save the Bay, and the Marine Institute, the Marine Science Institute. So we'll be kind of working along with them to help develop these modules that local school instructors will be able to give to their children in their classes and help them educate them on water and some of the other topics that have to do with the environment. And then subject number 4, we got the Bay Area Water Supply and Conservation Agency member agencies drought response survey results. I'm not super familiar with this, but that's those are some results from a survey that BOSCA conducted that we recently received. And then subject number 5, California Way of Life, the new CII account classifications. So the state is encouraging or is mandating that we break down all our CII accounts, commercial, industrial, and institutional accounts, and break them down within these 19 categories that are listed below. And this is just to help keep track of how much water is being used, and to help with efficiency, and to just overall make sure that we are aware of how much water is being used within these subcategories. And then subject number 6 is relating to our rebates. And so below in the discussion portion, you can see within the fiscal year how many rebates were completed per category. We had 3 long begone rebates. We had 26 rain barrels that were rebated for 14 different customers. We didn't have any rain gardens, or we had 4 Rachio irrigation controllers, which is a new technology that helps control irrigation systems. And then we had 1 drip hardware rebate. And as you can see that with the lawn begone, there's still some pending applications. I didn't want to include them in the fiscal year because they're not yet completed. But then we also have some graphs that were created that show over time how successful the rebates have been, and how many were completed per year. And as you can see in the lawn begone, there was quite a large spike, and it's kind of started to level out. So we're doing this to help keep track of what rebates we think have been successful and which ones we might need to like phase out, and maybe help think of new rebate ideas that we might incorporate into our rebate program.
Thanks, Brandon.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, very good. Good report, Brandon. Good job. This will be your first time when we do the award of the for the children's competition and the calendar and all that in it. And that's a fun meeting, you know, when you have all the children that come at our new facility now. We have room for them, Rena?
Well, we'll make room. I mean, we usually get a pretty good turnout. You guys
do.
know that. Yeah. So we'll make
Yeah,
room
we
for them.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do. It's usually a very fun meeting, and we have a lot of children and parents and teachers and pictures and all of that, so that will be a very nice event, Brendan, for you to be involved with as well. So
I'm very excited for it.
yeah, good. So
Right.
good job. I know I met you when we were doing the hauling of the material from one place to the other and storing it. So I've already met you, and I hope all the other directors will meet you as well later on. And we do have a question. So Director Schmidt, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, and good to meet you, Brandon. Welcome aboard. And I don't know if this is a question exactly, but I'm curious if there's a chance for someone to take a look at that subject number 4, the drought survey. They looked at other agencies. I'm wondering if there's any good ideas other people are doing that we might want to frankly steal from and do ourselves. So I don't know if there'll be a chance to take a look at that. I thought I'd bring that up though.
Okay. Brenda, I don't know, if I know that Brendan mentioned that we should look at our program to see if we can add on or remove some of the programs that are no longer feasible.
Yeah,
But,
my understanding is the water conservation programs we've been doing them in concert with BOSCA. And so I think part of that thing is that the group, the managers or the people that are participating in that discussion are talking about what's working and what's not working. And so I think that's where some of that genesis might come from. I'm not sure what their time frame is. I know, like recently, some of the rebates for some of the appliances kind of went away, right? And they went to something different. So they take a look at them from time to time, and I think where, people are still seeing a good bang for the buck is just, trying to get rid of lawns, right? To make an incentive for people to want to get rid of their lawns. And as you saw in the one graph in 2015, again, that was the last really big dry year here. There was just a spike of requests for the lawn be gone rebates, but it's kind of leveled off.
It's tapering off though, right?
Yeah. But
Well, if I could add,
Go ahead,
the
Kat.
reason we're looking at this is to see just that. When have these programs been really popular? Is there still opportunity to push these programs? What's worth kind of doing more of a focused campaign if we want to. And with the Lawn Be Gone in particular, we're working on looking at opening it up to more CII accounts. The state recently banned what they call non-functional turf for CII accounts. And so we're working on adapting the program to support that ban and further remove some of the turf that's really only used for ornamental purposes in our district. And on the drought survey, drought action survey, we've looked at and we responded to the survey and at our water manager rep meetings, there's a lot of discussion on what other agencies are doing, and it's all kind of very similar to what we're doing. We're pretty consistent with other agencies, but we are asking that question. Anytime someone has a good idea, we look and see if that will work for us. So
Absolutely. Good. Thank you. All right, Dr. Schmidt, that will do for you. Good. Okay, good. Anybody else? Excellent. Brandon, thank you so much. Okay. Thank you. Thank you,
Thanks,
Rena.
Brandon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Brandon.
Very good. So we'll move on to item number 9. We'll start off with Rena.
Yeah, the IGM and officer report. So just a few things I want to point out here is actually a proposed schedule for the Finance Committee meetings this calendar year, upcoming 2023. It was actually something the finance committee member, Kirk Wheeler asked for, and he was right. I took a look at, in the past what we've done, and usually around this time we'd put out a tentative schedule out there. So I want to plant this seed for the finance committee members, President Vela and board member Wheeler, who are on the finance committee, that here are some proposed meeting dates. They're usually the second or the third Wednesday of the month. They start about 10 o'clock in the morning, and going to take place the rest of the year throughout the season. We won't have one in August because the board typically has not met in August. And then I would like to hold open, some dates in potentially in July and September and October. And we'd run these meetings between March and October. So you can see, in March, April, May, and June, there are some proposed discussion topics for the finance committee. And so I thought I'd share it here at the IGM report. And if there's some discussion from the board and or the finance committee members, we can talk about that. And then looking ahead, we have a planned strategic plan meeting for Thursday, the second Thursday, March 9th at, I can't remember if it's 6 or 6:30, but I just checked in with Julie Brown. She just had knee surgery, so she's recovering right now. And that's why we didn't do it any sooner, because she just was not going to be available. But she said that she plans on being here on March 9th. So we'll be getting together to talk about the strategic plan. Looking forward here in March, the 23rd, the next board meeting, as Julie mentioned, unless something changes, we're probably going to be back in person for those board meetings. And if I think part of the reason we talked about the flood emergency, my recollection is part of the reason for adopting that resolution and getting some more time is it gives staff some more time to hopefully find a place and settle into that place. I think we've moved along, made some really good progress over the last month or so. So we might be ready to have a March, in-person meeting. I'll talk it over with staff, and then when we have the agenda conference with the president and vice president, I'll mention to them if we're ready for an in-person meeting in March. So keep your hats on, because in-person meetings will be coming back pretty soon, one way or another. And then following the board's next meeting in March, on Friday, March 24th, you're all invited and would like you to be a guest of the district for an employee appreciation dinner at 6:30 p.m. at the Iron Gate restaurant. There'll be some more information to come out there, but I just wanted you to put that out there as a placeholder for yourselves so that you can join us there. It's for the board members and your spouse or a loved one or a significant other that you would like to bring with you. So keep that in mind. And I think that's all I wanted to point out there. Are there any questions of the board members of anything on the IGM report that you want to ask? If not, I'll go into operations. It'll be pretty quick.
Mhm. Yeah, quick one, Rena, on the let's see, what was that meeting? It escaped me now. I wanted to ask you a question on. It'll come back to me.
Okay.
Anyways, any other question, anybody on this report?
Okay, moving into operations. I think just really I wanted to just point out our underground service alert request, 178 during the month of January, which is actually, that's the least that I can recall seeing in my time here with the district. But that's just what it is. I mean, there's a lot of activity, construction activity in Belmont right now, but the request for us to go out there and locate our utilities was just, pretty low for January. And that maybe some of it's related to, again, there's still typically not a lot of construction activity in the winter months in Belmont, but still we've been pretty busy. I mean, you can see February 2022, we had almost 350 USA requests, and I took off the January one, but I think it was still up there pretty high. We didn't do any too much maintenance out in the field because, again, we were just focused on the cleanup at the dairy lane facility out there. So, the operations staff were busy just moving things around and just kind of helping get cleaned up there. But now that we're kind of getting settled back into a groove, things are kind of getting a little bit back to normal. We're hoping that we're going to get out there and just do some maintenance. Just thinking about the fire hydrants, you saw the memo I put out. There was a mistake made by our fire hydrant supplier, Core and Main, and they had delivered some fire hydrants with the wrong sized outlets. Our standard calls for 2.5-inch outlets and 1 4.5-inch outlet, and they delivered I don't know, a dozen fire hydrants we found out that had a 4-inch outlet, and it's a problem for the fire department, as you saw in the memo. So we found that there were a dozen out there, and they were hydrants that were new, and of course we've been replacing a lot of hydrants. And so, we replaced those, we fixed those, and working with Core and Main to get the parts, no charge. And then the remaining hydrants that we have in our stock that have the wrong outlet, they're going to be replacing. They haven't replaced them yet. I was just talking to Michael about that, but they're in the process. And I think part of it is there's still some parts of the supply chain that are just causing frustrations for the industries and the providers like ourselves, and even our contractors are complaining about some of the lead times they have for some components of our capital projects. And you see here that we had 6 water leaks, and one of them was a leaking valve and not a hole in the pipe, but we did have 6 that we responded to. And so again, I think the biggest thing this past month was just responding to the flood we had at Dairy Lane operations, and we've gotten past that. And so now hopefully we'll be able to move back on and get into maintenance of the system and not so much responding to that flood emergency. So that's my report from the interim general manager or operations manager. Are there any questions or comments from the board members?
Yeah, good report, Rena.
Hey, we're almost done, Louis.
Thank you. Yeah. All right. Any questions, anybody from Rena? Okay, if not, we'll move on to the assistant GM. Okay.
All right, thanks. So a lot of my time has been focused on flood recovery and really time-consuming things like the furniture delivery and setup, and helping dealing with all the IT issues, which Stepford has been wonderfully supportive. I was able to attend Hanson Bridget's annual labor and employment seminar, which was a really great event. Really helpful introduction and overview, as well as, of course, focusing on all the new changes, which largely new to me. And unfortunately, I didn't feel I could take the time to go to the California Society of Municipal Finance Officers Conference as I had planned. At the end of the month, it was just too much time away. But fortunately, that conference does have a virtual option in March, where they will be taking kind of the key presentations, the best attended presentations, and presenting that as a virtual thing. So I will be able to take advantage of that in March. We held our DISC training, which really was a good team building thing. There's actually a survey done afterwards, and every single one of our staff thought that the class was either outstanding or excellent. So, on an anonymous survey from staff, to have everyone actually say it was, great and beneficial, I'm going to believe that it was a really great event. So, and I think, it helps really give us the language we have to kind of acknowledge those different motivation and communication styles and all of that. So when we do get into, something that could, be a bit of a conflict, you can address it as opposed to let it, go sideways into something that's counterproductive. So, and then as, Rena mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, I'll be taking over most of the, board secretary duties. You notice we're not going to change the agenda and go through that process of the agenda language, directing to Monique, but I'll be taking those over for the next 3 weeks with, of course, Monique's tutelage and support. But that'll give her more time to support the 2 new administrative assistant hires that we have starting on Monday. One thing that was it was really great is we, were a member of the SFPC Bosco Water Quality Committee. They hold quarterly meetings, and a few months ago, before the flood, Rena agreed to have us give the presentation. They have, one of the Bosco member agencies give kind of a presentation on their system, et cetera, at these meetings. And we were still on the hook for it despite all the flood activities. So Jonathan Anderson stepped up and he gave that presentation. I just want to, comment that he represented the district very well. And one of the questions and comments we got from, another attendee is they were just so amazed that with the small staff we have, how much our operation team does, including fixing our own, leaks and main breaks. So that was good, and he deserves some kudos for that. And then, as we're moving in and we're getting settled here, a big focus that to think about is ways that we can maintain staff cohesiveness, having the ops team primarily at Dairy Lane, and then, office staff here on, Old County. We did have, our safety meeting. We have a bi-weekly safety meetings, all hands kind of, various teaching, various topics that we go through, but everyone here. And so, ops team came here to the office. Next meeting we'll have at Dairy Lane. So we'll go over there. And we have various, luncheons and employee appreciation and whatnot where we get together, but there's still gonna be more opportunities where we'll kind of bridge those gaps because, we don't want to feel separate. We haven't, in the 6 months I've been here, we've been such a close team. We don't want to lose that. But I think, that those are the main things going on for me. If there's any questions from the board.
Very good. Thank you. All right. Any questions of Kat in her report? Thank you. It's a good thing that that we are still kind of participating in, countywide responsibilities that we have. Granted that we had other very urgent things to deal with, and we appreciate the effort and the inclusion of other people besides the management staff, to showcase our operation. So thank you for that. All right. Anything else from anyone? All right, good. So we'll move on to the admin services. Monique?
Thank you. I don't have a lot to add. I could just add on to Kat talking about moving into the new office. We do have, today we finally got the last of the computers, and tomorrow we get the last 2 offices, and we got our network up and got our Wi-Fi going. So it's a really good and positive direction that we're moving. So we were able to get the office set up for Al this week, and Tammy has a space. So we're really looking forward to the 2 new people coming in, and we announced it to staff today. They know to come by and introduce themselves. So we're all just looking forward to settling in and having a space where we have more space and we're not sitting on top of other staff who allowed us to share their space. And
Working in a cold shop.
Yeah, that was Rena's place. He had his jacket on every day. But now it's warm.
So Monique, quick one on these 2 new admin assistants. They're going to be, helping you obviously, but what is their role primarily?
Kelly will be taking the place of Laura. When
Okay.
Laura left, we didn't replace her position right away, and then we tried an accountant, and we weren't real successful on that. So we're hiring an admin assistant to work in payroll and benefits, and so we'll be working with them. Tammy will be working with Elizabeth, who will be doing payroll and benefits first for the first few weeks, so that I can focus on helping with Kelly's training, and then I'll participate in both of them. I mean, Tammy and I've put a plan together, so but that's what they'll be doing.
All right, very good. Any questions of Monique? All right, seeing none. District engineer?
Yes, good evening. I'm sorry, my report it did not get included. That was my fault. It was a little mix up. So I'm just going to verbally go through just a few projects that, not a few, there's quite a bit out there, but they're all the quick updates. The harbor water main project was awarded by the board last month or 2 months ago, and is currently, we're waiting. We met with a contractor to talk about schedules, as Rena mentioned, and as all of you are aware with our previous reports, there is still the supply chain issue. So we're working with the contractor on developing a schedule. Right now, it looks like May 1st is their potential start time. We verified with all the vendors that the contractor is indeed has ordered parts, and there is a lag on parts coming in. That's actually not a bad thing, to be quite honest, because Harbor Boulevard underneath that pavement is quite wet. And so I wouldn't mind starting in May, to be quite honest, because it's just going to be a wet mess if we start earlier. So timing wise, it looks like it's going to line up very well. And there's a lot of coordination that has already taken place with Caltrans, with the off-ramp on Harbor, and also the county, that's county right away through there, and the city as we tie in on Old County Road. So that's exciting. That project is, we're going to be spending some money on that one, starting May 1st, putting some pipe in the ground, which is always good. Another project that's in design right now by one of our consultants, Mott McDonald, is the DeKalb Lincoln Oak Knoll Newland project that was on the reports previously. That's also progressing. They're on schedule. They're doing some potholing up there just to make sure the alignment is lined up. Alignment is lined up. That's probably not the right way to say it, but we'll just go with that. But they're just verifying the alignment with potholing. How about that? That sounds a little better. But it's on schedule. We're expecting 90% plans here, probably in about 2 weeks, according to the schedule. Our last biggie project is our Old County Road project, which is goes all the way from Ralston down to the furthest south of our district. It's a very major disruptive project. It's been in design now for about 4 years. Our consultant Schaff and Wheeler has been working on that, and we're in the finish line. I mean, we're right there. We're on the third version of the 100% plans, just working through some minor comments. And I have the schedule here in front of me. We're anticipating advertising the last week in March and awarding the contract if the bids come in favorably at our May 25th board meeting. That's the earliest, possibly pushing that to June board meeting. But we have a board meeting that we're targeting, which is a lot better than where we were a couple of months ago. So very positive. There are lots and lots of coordination on that. I can't even get into how complicated that project is to design, let alone to construct. So that one, we have a construction management firm already on board through our on-call contract. It's going to be 4-leaf, and they've been 4-leaf consultants, and they've been involved with the design. We wanted to bring them in early on, and so they're looking at constructability. Once the project is awarded, we're going to start our outreach with all the residents and businesses. There are tons of businesses there. And we're also looking at doing night work there to be less disruptive. So, but we haven't started the outreach yet because we want to talk to the contractor about schedule. Because of all the supply chain issues, we don't want to get ahead and start talking to businesses, getting them excited about the project, if that's the right word, and then not know exactly when the contractor is going to start. So seeing how things are lining up, it could be potentially during the winter of 2023 or 2024 that they may be starting actual construction, possibly. Okay, and then the last thing I wanted to well, I guess it's not my last thing. 2 other items I have is we're starting to look at a seismic analysis of our Folger property now that we may be occupying it for a period of time. We're talking to structural engineers. We have a meeting early next week with a structural engineer that's going to look at that building and just give us an assessment of its seismic vulnerability. If we're going to have people in there now, we want to make sure that it's it can withstand earthquakes. And if there's any modifications, minor modifications or major modifications we need to make, we need to be aware of what the risks are of being in that building. And the last thing I wanted to mention is that we received, let me pull this up on my screen. We received, after every major project, we send out a survey to the residents around the project area. We want to get their feedback. We want to understand how we did. The last major project we had was the Belmont, Vine, and Hastings water main project that was completed late last year. In December, we sent out 170 surveys, and we received 27 back, which is about a 16% hit rate. Typically, we average about 12 to 15%. So this is actually a little bit better than what we're used to getting back by just a little bit. So that out of the 27, we received very favorable results to the 4 questions we asked. And I'm going to share this with the board on a separate email. I'm just going to send it out as a PDF, and I can answer any questions specifically. But just on a 30,000 foot level, question 1 was, did we complete the project with minimal inconvenience to you? 93%, or 25 out of the 27 surveys, strongly agreed or strongly agreed with that statement. That's really good. That's one that we really look at to make sure that we are any construction project is inconvenient, right? We're digging a big hole in front of your house, and you're not going to be able to access your driveway. Possibly there's going to be water shutdowns, but long term, obviously, once we're out, it's better for the residents. They have much more reliable service. So we want to be in and out as fast as we can with minimal inconvenience. So that's always a good one to gauge our how well we're doing. Question 2 is, did our contractor and our staff act professionally and courteously? And 85% strongly agreed. The rest were neutral. They probably didn't have interaction with our staff or the contractor. Was the project area left in better condition? That one was lower than what we expected, 63%. But the comments that we received were almost all related to the pavement out there. And the pavement, to be quite honest, is in terrible condition. And that's not our fault. The city hasn't maintained it. So, but unfortunately, we get blamed for it because we were the last ones out there. So when you look at the comments, you'll see that they're all pavement related. And so we take that and look at it and see, if we can do something better. So anyway, I wanted to share that with you. I'll send the full results with an email to the board with one-way communication. And then if you have any questions on the results, please feel free to reach out to me directly. My apologies that I don't have a written report this month, but we'll make sure to have that in the packet next month. If there's any questions I can answer, I'll be happy to do so.
Very good. Thank you, Jubin. Any questions for Jubin? Jubin, how realistic are the timelines for the Old County Road? It's converging, President Vela. It's really getting down to the wire. So I mean, it's coming to the finish line. I shouldn't say to the wire. So I felt very confident sharing those dates with you. I didn't feel comfortable last month sharing exact dates, but I do feel very comfortable sharing it now. And I think it's very realistic. The unrealistic part, or not the unrealistic, the unknown part, Director Vela, is once a project gets awarded, because of the size of the project, it's the supply chain and the pipes and the valves and the availability of the parts, right? So I'm very confident that we're going to get competitive bids. The bidding market is really good right now. So as far as timing wise with this project going on, I feel very confident that we're going to get multiple bids and competitive bids. So timing wise, it's really good. But again, on the back end, once the project is awarded, we're going to obviously push to make sure that they start as soon as possible. But I won't know that until it gets awarded. Correct. Yes. And a lot of commercial buildings and businesses are going to be inconvenienced with that project. That's that's going to be
I'm
Quite-
gonna
quite
take
a
a 6
nightmare.
month, I'm gonna take a 6 month vacation while this thing is being built.
denied.
We'll bring Tammy back for that one.
I was gonna say, including us, we're gonna be right there for them to come bang down our door, right? Now that we're on the
Yeah,
OCR.
it's gonna happen right in front of us. Yeah.
I'd have to say that we had a really good learning experience with El Camino, right? And this one's worse as far as, I shouldn't say worse, it's just more challenging. There's more businesses, it's a tighter street, narrower street. But I felt like we learned a lot on El Camino. And if you recall, even though at the very end it was very challenging working with the contractor, we had one complaint on the entire El Camino project, you know, with all those businesses and all those townhomes. And I think communication is paramount, and it's built into the contract for Four Leaf. That's the reason we hired them. That's the reason they're involved during the design. They're involved with the phasing of the project, which is built into the design. So I'm not going to guarantee it's going to go well. I'm fairly certain it's not going to go well, just because Old County Road is just, there's so many utilities underground. It's a very, very busy street, both above ground and underground. But as far as coordination with the residents and the coordination with the businesses,
Businesses,
it is
especially.
it is one of our major focus.
Yeah. So my assumption, Jubin, will be that that work will probably move a lot slower
Absolutely.
than normal. So the inconvenience in front of a building or a business, it's going to be a little bit extended, you know. So
No, absolutely, Louis. It's going to be very slow going. It's going to require major. We're going to have the designer. We're going to have the construction management team working hand in hand, because I anticipate running into a lot of unknown stuff, right?
exactly, I was going to say, you know, be prepared for surprises.
Yeah, that one. So we're going to come to you with a pretty hefty. You know, I think I mentioned this a couple of months ago, but we're going to come to you with a pretty hefty contingency, because we're anticipating that we're going to. This is not going to be a smooth project, just because of the number of stuff underground. No matter how well we try to, or our consultant.
We're gonna have to stay optimistic, Jubin. We'll stay optimistic.
You know, that way when we don't have any problems, you guys can say, yeah, that went great. So. I always give Rena a hard time. We actually had a meeting today that it's always, you know, I always say, Rena, you're always glass half empty. So he's probably saying the same thing here. So
yeah, there you go. Good. Director Jordan, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. And so Jubin, I appreciate you say that you guys are going to come kind of with a hefty contingency budget, because I think it was on the El Camino project, it came over budget by an amount that kind of made me pause a little bit. But, you know, knowing what we know going into this large project, I'd rather you ask for more upfront at the beginning, so we know what we're working with, and going over budget at the end. So I appreciate you taking that into consideration.
thank you, Director Jordan. And actually on the El Camino project, even though the dollar amount for our settlement and closeout at the very end was the lump sum was larger, it actually was still within the 10% contingency of the project. So it worked out well, but it was a very large project. And I absolutely, Director Jordan, thank you for mentioning that. We're going to do our best to you know, not spend it, but we're going to try to plan ahead for it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Excellent. Any other questions or comments from the directors or anyone? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to the financial reports. That will be Rena will start, or
No, there's Al. Yeah, Al's going to
okay.
give the presentation, Louis.
Okay, Al, please.
Okay, thank you. I won't go over every bullet, but of course, if anyone has any questions. January, well, the second bullet points out that the Surplus from operations decreased $611 in January. So basically, expenses and revenue were identical. The water commodity charges remain in a deficit position. Looking at the detail a little more thoroughly, there is a positive trend. It started out the year very in a very large deficit, and the last compared to the budget, but also compared to last year, is under last year. And the most recent few months, it's been running a bit over last year. So revenue is increasing in a relative sense, but there's still going to be a deficit at year end. Water system capacity charges, of course, are very much over budget, good surplus there. Interest continues to come in much higher than budgeted. And that's just rates being much higher. We took current rates when we built the budget last year, and they've gone up multifold. As far as the operating expenses, the only category that is running over budget is utilities. There looks to be that there'll be a deficit there by year end. If you look at the memberships and governmental fees, they appear to be over budget by their percentage, but that's caused by the fact that the quarterly BOSCA fee was paid for January through March. In January, so you have 3 months expense in 1 month. So that will even out over the year, and it's actually on budget, that line item. A line item was added for the flood recovery. It's not a huge amount at this point, and as been discussed, we expect, if not all, the great majority of those costs to be refunded or rebated, however you want to look at it, with the insurance. But it made sense to show it separately so it didn't get jumbled in with another line item and make it appear to be running over budget. So like I said, that's a single line item on the budget now. And the only other changes is in the statement of net position, and this was discussed during the audit. There were some significant changes in the presentation this year. The leases were discussed, and that's due to a new GASB, governmental accounting board standard, and annual evaluations are done to OPEB and to the pension asset accounts. So the amounts from the budget, or from the audit, I'm sorry, were loaded into the statement of net position, just to be consistent with the audit. So other than that, that's, unless anyone has any questions.
Very good. Thank you, Al. And I appreciate you singling out these items, because even though we see them on paper, it's good that we have you kind of talking about it and letting us know where the numbers are coming from and where you see them going. So
Okay.
that's very much appreciated.
Yeah.
I'm
sorry.
I don't like to hear the word deficits and we're going into a deficit. Those are not nice words to hear, but I'd rather have the truth.
And I like to bring it up as early as possible so plans can be made. And yes, there is a deficit in your largest revenue line item, but there are some large surpluses too, and not even counting in the revenue, but in the expenditures or expenses. So those offset, and then of course you have the capacity charge revenue and the rent revenue. If I could touch on one last item, and I don't know if Director Schmidt would care about this, but follow up to his question about the depreciation. On the budget, depreciation is shown as a separate line item. It's the, one of the largest single expenditures, but it's also broken out from operating expenditures because those are cash items, the operating expenditures. That's basically cash that's gone out the door this year. Whereas depreciation is a true expense, but in terms of, you're recognizing spending millions of dollars, but the money hasn't gone out this year. So that's why it's termed expense, and expenditure refers to cash expenditures. So it's broken out that way in case anyone never wondered.
Very good. The surplus that you mentioned, though, Al, were because of the projection that they were slightly over budget, correct?
Well, the items in surplus as far as expenses, and when I'm saying surplus, I'm saying the expenses running lower than expected.
That exactly, yeah.
Yeah, and one thing, I've mostly worked at water agencies where we pump the water out of the ground and not purchase it. Here, if you don't sell the water, you immediately get savings offsetting half or a little bit more than half of the water not sold, because you're not buying the water. You don't have to pay for it. Having a deficit in your sales for an agency that pumps the water, I know, having experienced it, is a lot. You don't have an offsetting savings, and it's not 100%, I realize, but it does help when over half of the deficit is made up in a surplus in purchasing the water. And the other items are just, generally, you budget conservatively, meaning you're going to estimate, it's an estimate. So you're going to estimate
Correct.
a little high, not wildly high on the expenditures, and maybe a little low on the revenue, so that if you go in thinking, okay, we're going to break even, and no one complains if you do better than expected, as long as it's
Yes.
within bounds of reason.
Yes, going
Yeah.
conservatively and have a little cushion is good.
Yeah.
Well, and the last comment I was going to mention is, one perfect example of that is when Al and I projected what we thought interest revenues were going to be. At the beginning of last year, we had no idea, that the market would be the way it is. So you'll see significant surpluses in those budget items.
Correct.
Next
The
month
fact
is
that-
mid-year budget review, so you'll see them perfectly at that time.
I was going to say the feds even didn't know that. So, but here we are. So, okay, excellent. Thank you so much. Any other comments or questions from the directors? Anybody? All right, seeing none. Let's see, we'll go to director's report. I don't know who wants to start. I have on top, I have Director Jordan. Kathy, anything?
Sure, just briefly, I had my monthly meeting with Rena yesterday, so I got to see the new offices, and it's coming along, or at least the temporary offices, and it's coming along really well. So thank you, staff, for all the hard work in getting there. That's it.
Excellent, thank you. Very good. Director Schmidt?
No, nothing to report, and thanks, Al, for the clarification on depreciation.
You're very welcome.
Excellent. Director Wheeler? Kirk?
I went to HIA this month, and then we had the finance committee meeting. So those were the only two events.
Excellent. What was the main topic on the HIA again?
It was primarily the long-term planning for the harbor area. Both the city of San Carlos has their northeast area specific plan that they are working on. And they're going to be planning for a lot of new development along harbor, industrial and part of harbor. And then Belmont is looking at annexing some buildings on Harbor Boulevard from the county And so they're coming up with a specific plan. So both of those are going to have public meetings for scoping in the late spring. And then essentially review plans in the summer and trying to flesh out the scope for environmental review in the fall. But the plans would actually be approved next year. So a lot of these buildings are going to be on hold for a while.
Yeah, we just have the explanation on the type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4 labs and all that, right?
Yes.
For the new buildings. Yeah, that was interesting. Yeah, good. All right, thank you. So Vice President Zuka.
Nothing really to report. I did want to apologize for last minute not making the monthly meeting last month. I gave myself plenty of time in traffic, and upon arrival at my destination, there were people in the house that didn't belong there. That then, although I was going to be an hour late, had some interesting conversation and some interesting conversations were had. So again, apologies, but I had to kick some people out of the house.
Yeah. That's not always fun, but anyways. Good. So I also attended the HIA and the finance committee meeting that Kirk mentioned earlier. So, all right, very good. Let's see, communications, Rena.
Yeah, a couple. One thing I forgot to point out under the iGym report is, right now we're tentatively planning a retirement party for Tammy. Right now it's April 7th, so keep that in mind. I believe that's also a Friday, and it's just going to be, not going to be a dinner, but just, some drinks and hors d'oeuvres. So we're going to be inviting board members and then colleagues of hers in the region that she's worked with over the years. So it'll be a fun event, and just to kind of celebrate Tammy's retirement from the district. So I forgot to mention that in my iGym report. And then in terms of communications too, we got in the mail the other day from the California Special District Association. They're calling for nominations for seat C. It's one of the seats on the committee. And so I've got the form here. I think what I want to do is scan it and send it out to the board members, see if anybody's interested in doing it. And so the instructions are there. And if somebody is, I understand that the process is that, of course, there's an application form, but it also requires, along with the application, that the board that this member sits on, that the board adopt a resolution or pass a minute order to support the application. And from what I read here, it looks like in our region of the Special District Association, we're in the northern area, it's due on April 17th. So I'll get the scan sent out, and if somebody wants to apply for the seat, maybe let me know so we make sure we get it timely, on the board for consideration next month, so that it meets the deadline for an April 17th submission.
And
That's
there
all
is
I have.
examples, Rena and staff, of past resolutions where
Okay.
members have wanted to run for boards. So,
Okay, thanks, Tammy.
All right, that's communications. That's all we had.
That's all I have.
Very good. All right, so that's it. We went through the whole agenda. Thank you all very much. And we'll adjourn.
But we have we have a
The closed session.
Yeah, we have
Very
closed
good.
session.
So we'll do 5 minutes, and then we'll come back. Those of us, we're going to come back to the closed session. Okay?
And you should all have the invite.
Yes.
Just email me if you need it again.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Very good.
Sounds
All
good.
right. Thank you all very much. And I'll see some of you in 5 minutes. Thanks.
Good night.
Bye, y'all.
Thank you.
So
And I'll
reconvene
make a
at
motion.
10:08 and end at
10:09.
10:09.
And I'll move and self-approve adjourning.
Okay. Good night.
All right.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody. Bye-bye.